Little Jupiter Robinson entered the world fighting for his life. He was diagnosed with a heart condition, and at just 4 days old, he underwent his first surgery. As you can imagine, his mom Vanessa wanted to be by his side every step of the way throughout his treatment and recovery. Thankfully, Ronald McDonald House Charities already had her back. She was able to stay at a Ronald McDonald House just blocks away from the hospital where Jupiter was staying at and receiving his care, and she was able to be by his side at a moment's need. According to healthychildren.org, between 10 and 20 million children in the U.S. suffer from a chronic illness or disability. Their families struggle if they have to stay in the hospital for long periods of time, whether it be days, weeks, or even months. Families can't afford to pay for a hotel by the hospital, and sometimes there are no hotels close enough to the hospital. They sometimes can't pay because they might not be working at the time because they need to be there to care for their child. This is even more of a problem in third world countries throughout the world. Fortunately, Ronald McDonald House Charities, or RMHC, helps with this. Now, the person behind the origin of this charity is a man by the name of Fred Hill. If you don't know him, he was a tight end for the Philadelphia Eagles in 1974, when Kim, his daughter, of just 3 years of age, was diagnosed with leukemia. Fred and his wife could not afford a hotel, and so they just sat in chairs at the hospital, and all they ate was food from the vending machines. During their time there, Fred found out that many other families were living the same way, whose children were in the hospital. So, with the help of his team, the Philadelphia Eagles, McDonald's, and Dr. Audrey Evans from the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, he was able to create the first Ronald McDonald House. McDonald's even used money from their sale of Shamrock Shakes to help fund the house. Since then, Ronald McDonald House Charities has grown and have accumulated 375 houses around the world. According to Ronald McDonald House Charities, their mission is to create, find, and support programs that directly improve the health and well-being of children and their families. Their vision for the future is to see a world where all children have access to medical care, and their families are supported and are actively involved in their child's care. Now, providing homes for these families while their children are in the hospital is not the only thing that Ronald McDonald House Charities does. They have 3 core programs through which they help the children and their families. Now, the first is the Ronald McDonald House Program. The whole purpose of these houses is to give the parents a place to stay while their child is in the hospital. The main focus is that the family feels as if they are at home, through home-cooked meals, a place to rest, and a place to stay strong for their child. So far, the Ronald McDonald House Program has provided more than 1.4 million overnight stays for children's families. Now, I personally know one of the families who have stayed at one of these houses. My friend Eli has cystic fibrosis, and he has had to stay in the hospital for long periods of time on multiple different occasions. I remember in 6th grade, he stayed for a few weeks, but his family wasn't able to stay in the house because they lived too close to the hospital, and it's designed for families that are farther away from the hospital. But when he was a lot younger and lived in South Carolina, his family did stay at one of these houses when he was in the hospital for a few weeks. And it helped them so much, and it helped them stay strong as a family and took care of any needs that they had. Now, another one of the core programs is the Ronald McDonald Family Room Program. These family rooms are areas located directly in the hospital so that parents are even closer to the child than if they were at a Ronald McDonald house. These rooms sometimes better fit the needs of the families if they need to be closer than the child, and they do almost as many things as the Ronald McDonald House house program does. These rooms there are more than 265 of these rooms throughout the world, and so many different hospitals. Now, the third core program is the Ronald McDonald Mobile Care Program. This is where the Ronald McDonald House Charity is able to provide children and communities with dental, medical, and health education needs that they may have. Now, they mostly go to poorer communities where kids might not have enough medicine or a toothbrush or some of the things that they need, and maybe their parents don't even know how to properly take care of their child medically. Now, this program is a lot like the Chinese proverb that says, if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. But if you teach a man how to fish, you feed him for life. This definitely is what this program is all about, because it teaches families how to care for their child so that they have better medical attention years down the road in the future. This outreach believes that every child deserves proper medical attention and treatment, and they do their best to provide this to as many kids as possible. As of right now, there are 45 of these care mobile vehicles, but more are constantly being added to that number. So now you know all about the Ronald McDonald House Charities and everything that they do. What can you do to help? First, you can volunteer. The reason RMHC is able to do as much as they do is because of their volunteers. The volunteers are the backbone behind the whole process. Now, I want you to think about how many people you think get paid for the Ronald McDonald House Charities. If you thought of anything less than 0, then you're wrong. All of the workers for the Ronald McDonald House Charities are volunteers. There are over 136,000 of them throughout the world. These volunteers are spread throughout the world in more than 62 countries. Another thing you can do is donate. Ronald McDonald House Charities is a nonprofit organization, and they rely a lot on donations from around the world. If you go to a McDonald's, you may notice that they have boxes at the cash register to put spare change into. And I'm not asking you to put money towards this instead of getting your cup of coffee for the day, because I know that a lot of people need that. But I would ask that you definitely pray and see if God wants you to donate. Now, speaking of prayer, that's one of the best things you can do for the charity. One of the greatest things you can do is pray. And it can do so much more than any money or volunteer hours you can give towards it. There are so many other things that you can do, such as running in the Chicago Marathon to help raise money for the Ronald McDonald House, hosting a fundraiser, or becoming a corporate sponsor. All these things you can do to help benefit millions of children throughout the world, especially those who need it most. So now, go out, volunteer, donate some of your spare change, pray, and most importantly, go to McDonald's, no matter how bad their food tastes.